It has been a busy week in the automotive industry with speculative headlines circulating as we discuss the main event, the Inflation Reduction Act, particularly the reformed hybrid and EV tax credit, its rollout, and different eligibility requirements. But before we continue, subscribe to our channel for future content on all things automotive and check out our website for incredible discounts. So let's get into it. Inflation Act has passed the Senate and is on its way to President Joe Biden's desk for final approval, and as soon as that pen is lifted, you are no longer qualified for the current rebate. The new program that renews on January 2023 continues the $7,500 EV tax credit and adds a new tax credit up to $4,000 on used electric vehicles. We will discuss the requirements for used vehicles after new vehicles. Now, as a consumer, you have MSRP caps for two sets of vehicles. On one side, you have the sedans, the hatchbacks, the wagons, where the MSRP cannot exceed $55,000. And on the other side, you have SUVs, pickup trucks, and vans, where they cannot have an MSRP that exceeds $80,000. This act also has income limits in place that also apply for buyers of new vehicles, which are $300,000 for those filing jointly federal tax returns, $225,000 for head of household filers, and $150,000 for individual filers. Currently, you are only eligible to use the EV credit upfront on leases. However, starting in 2024, purchases qualify for using the EV credit upfront at dealership, basically reducing your cap costs. The legislation additionally has removed the 200,000 sales cap, which is a clear benefit to a select few automotive manufacturers at the moment. As you are aware, Tesla, GM, and Toyota are no longer eligible for the EV credit, and Nissan is slowly approaching the sales cap. However, the bill has unfolded a lot of criticism and backlash. The act makes vehicles assembled outside of North America ineligible for the tax credit as a means to reverse the modern globalization that the Greenspan generation initiated. This is further evident as the act clearly states that battery critical minerals from China, Russia, and other nations deemed countries of particular concern by the U.S. Department are prohibited in any volume after 2025. On top of that, the act states that materials and critical minerals for EV batteries must be 40% from U.S. sources or from countries with which the U.S. has a free trade agreement. That sourcing percentage increases to 50% during 2024, 60% in 2025, and then 70% in 2026, finally going to 80% starting in 2027. Additionally, eligible vehicles' non-mineral battery components must be sourced in North America or free trade countries in increasing levels, starting at 50% by cost in 2023 and topping out at 100% in 2029. This is obviously to spur new trade diversification as current geopolitical tensions have created a very fragile supply chain. It is also to avoid a global supply chain that is overly reliant on adverse country, but also those that are subject to proxy wars. Essentially, the United States is seeking new trade allies. Given the current global supply chain, it has created some difficulties for both consumers and automotive manufacturers to determine which vehicles qualify. Now, further guidelines are to be released by the government towards the end of the year that provide some additional clarification to both parties. Some of the key benefits are the price limits and sourcing rules will also encourage car makers to develop cheaper batteries that require fewer imported raw materials. Tesla and other car makers are already selling cars with batteries based on iron and phosphate, known as LFP, rather than batteries that contain nickel and cobalt, which are costly and come from countries with tainted human rights and environmental records. The legislation could be more difficult for companies like Toyota and Stellantis, which own Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram, because they have not started making or selling large numbers of battery-powered vehicles in the United States. The legislation effectively penalizes newer electric car companies like Lucid and Rivian, whose vehicles are too expensive to qualify for the credits. At the end of the day, compliance of these requirements will put a huge financial burden on automotive manufacturers as they seek to build North America plants and discover approved sources for their battery material. But The MSRP eligibility ensures that auto manufacturers shall not only build more eligible vehicles for consumer sales, but also not to pass the overhead cost to consumers. Now, there is a lot of speculation, but I found one article that puts together a list of qualified vehicles under the new rules. Their battery content might change things, but based on where they are assembled and what they are priced at, out of 72 models eligible today, could qualify in 2023 under the new rules. Additionally, check out the description box below for a list of all hybrid and EV vehicles as listed on IRS's site. As mentioned earlier, the EV tax credit offers a new tax credit of up to $4,000 or 30% of the purchase price on used EVs that cost $25,000 or less for EVs that are put into service after December 31st, 2023. There are separate buyer income limits for used cars of $75,000 for a single filer, $112,500 for a head of household, and $150,000 for joint filers. The bottom line is that this package will create a much friendlier EV buying landscape down the road, but it will take some time for manufacturers to adjust to federal requirements and provide additional consumer options as well. Trade groups and industry analysts say anywhere from 70% to even 100% of current EV models sold in the US will fail to qualify at first, as we wait guidance, which is required to be given by the end of this year. For example, the 40% battery material requirement, which is the threshold for the first $3,750, extends from when guidance is given until January 2024. Additionally, it will be interesting to see how manufacturers adapt their sales model strategy to remain in compliance with the requirements, but also adjusting to generational demands, particularly Generation Z. We are seeing more brands adopt the subscription-based model where features and packages are offered as a service. This prevents the MSRP from increasing. I think this is a fantastic idea for both consumer and manufacturers, which we will discuss in the next video. Now, the real question here is what happens between when the Inflation Reduction Act is signed and when guidance is given. So stay tuned for our next video to get important updates as they are released. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe to our channel to get notified as new content drops. I'll see you guys on the next video.